as a competency restoration. They're not going to be restored, yet they're often in the state supported living centers. Some of them might no longer meet the criteria to be there. There's no mechanism now for the possible community placement, or that may be somebody who's appropriate for a community placement to free up that bed for somebody else who is incompetent to stand trial. So it's creating a mechanism for possible step down that we have on the mental health side, we don't on the IPD side, and to assure long-term court supervision, continuing court supervision of those individuals. Another relates to some revisions in the court-ordered medication provisions in both the Health and Safety Code as well as 46B 086 to permit in places where it talks about a physician or physician and psychiatrist to have extenders such as psychiatric nurse practitioners or physician's assistants who have specialization with this population of persons with mental illness. To let that be a possibility for those individuals to be able to testify in those proceedings. And then on purely the civil side, looking at emergency detentions, one concern that's frequently come to many of us and the staff is with a magistrate's warrant on emergency detention, there's nothing in the code that provides an expire by time. When does the warrant become, in effect, stale? That's been handled locally by, I guess, guesswork in terms of what the appropriate time is. This would create a 48-hour clock for serving that magistrate's warrant. Without prejudice, if they don't find the person, that a new one could be issued, or of course you could do an APAL apprehension by peace officer of the individual when they're encountered. So we looked at some other things on records as well, but I won't get into the nitty-gritty. Let me stop with that. If there are any questions, I'll try and field them. Bill Cox isn't here to answer juvenile questions, so I'll have to fake it on those.
He met with us yesterday, the executive committee yesterday, and I think we drilled him so hard, he decided he needed a break. You know, he was extremely helpful.
I do have a question. That was a very impressive list. Was there any discussion about the continuation of medications that are prescribed at the state hospital by the jails? Because that's been partly our concern and our experience. I mean, locally, we've actually addressed that. That, for example, send somebody to the hospital for competency restoration, they might be put on an injectable, antipsychotic medication. They come back, the jail has a different formulary and doesn't provide that medication. So we've actually addressed that, but in my experience, that can be a problem. Because again, the continuity of medications, because the state hospitals will have a different formulary than some of the local jails.
I think we've addressed that in prior sessions where one, the medication, if there's a medication order that follows the person for 6 more months back to the jail, and there are other provisions that talk about supposed to continue medications prescribed at the state hospital. And then a couple sessions ago, we had some legislation passed that if there's a diagnosis and medication prescribed at the jail, then the jail has to make those available. So if there's still gaps, let us know. We may have to start working on that for next session. The follow-up.
That's good. That's good.
Well, and also maybe someone from HHSC could answer, is there still the program where you could be refunded? No.
Yes, the program still exists. It's a company.
That's to come, okay.
So
You
the
wanna say
county
anything
can
about
get
that one?
reimbursed, right?
Yes. I know the county can seek reimbursement because we're the local mental health authority.
And what, do you remember the circumstance?
The circumstance is solely the returns from the state hospital. Whatever was prescribed at the state hospital is reimbursable for up to 9 days.
Do you know how often different counties actually seek reimbursement for those medications?
Off the top of my head, I do not have those numbers, but we do produce a report every single year that does have that. Not every county is connecting with their local mental health authority for those purposes, but it is available, and we have seen fairly strong movement upwards of more and more counties taking advantage of that.
Is there maybe it already is publicized to counties, but those who haven't been trying to draw down those dollars, do you have a mechanism where you alert them, hey, we got some money?
So we work with the jail commission, as well as all of our Tacoma contracted local mental health authorities, which is everybody in this state, to get that awareness out there. The state hospitals have been very kind in their processes with us too, where we sort of just have an internal flagging notice that, hey, this person might be returning. That allows us to provide some technical assistance at the local level, just to remind people that those funds are available if they'd like to take that opportunity to take advantage of it.
Sounds like a podcast idea.
Any further questions or comments for Professor Shannon and Justice Boyce?
And just one last thought, just again, want to thank everybody from the work groups who worked so hard on these and assisted. I was just the moderator. We've got some a great deep bench, good team. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Shannon. Justice Boyce.
For Professor Shannon to say he's just the moderator is a tremendous understatement. This group knows more than I think most just how essential and critical he's been to this work even before the founding of the commission, and we are very grateful. And he's very patient, in particular with me, who is not as well versed as my colleagues over here on criminal matters in terms of getting me up to speed and helping me to understand so that I can explain and advocate for these various proposals later on. So with that, and I also want to say thank you for those excellent reports from the staff. I'm looking forward to the summit this year in San Marcos. For one thing, it's less of a drive for those of us that are around here most of the time. I know you have to deal with I-35, a lot of you, and that's the downside. But we did the summit there maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and I think it was a nice venue. It's kind of quiet, a little off the beaten path. So looking forward to seeing everyone there. Didn't know about the headshots, but what a great thing. It's always good to kind of keep up with Father Time in your photography so that you don't look like Dorian Gray or something like that. So anyway, if you like me, we're not thinking about that as you got ready for this meeting, you can forego it, or you can just see. Maybe sometimes when you don't think about it, best picture comes. So anyway, at this point, we're going to go ahead and go around and hear updates from the commissioners, because we now have our other in-person meeting in connection with the summit. We try to have special programming for that, and then we do the one in the winter, sort of early spring, virtually. We allowed more time this time for people to give updates on what is going on. So I won't put you on the clock like I sometimes have, but be mindful. And we would like to hear any thoughts or reports that you have about what your particular group is doing. And I think we'll probably just go around, if that's all right. And if you don't have anything to report, just pass the mic. So it's not essential that you give a report.
All right, I think I have this on. A few things.
Oh, and I should say, just for the benefit of the group, would you all introduce yourselves and kind of tell us who you are?
Oh, yes. My name is Lee Pearson. I'm chief of the mental health division for the Dallas DA's office. And we've had several things going over the past year. last year, we were able to get a critical time intervention team embedded with the mental health division through one of our service providers, MetroCare. This has 4 QMHPs and 4 peer support specialists that works with the attorneys in the division. We have them through an interlocal agreement. So it's really proven to be very, very successful. We spent most of last year looking for money because it was a federal grant that we didn't think was going to get re-upped, and then at the last minute it did. So we're looking for money again this year. We've hit some road bumps with it as well, because with that, we didn't realize when you have someone that's not with the DA's office, even though they're with an interlocal agreement working with our office, we have CJIS concerns. So we've had to kind of relay out the way the division is so we don't come afoul of CJIS and work with all of that, but it's going well. I'm excited to have better numbers for that as we get deeper into the program. Dallas County itself is looking at revamping the way we do mental health cases. This is a county-wide effort through all partners that are involved. Several of us have gone over the course of the last year to Miami to attend the Decriminalizing Mental Illness seminar that they have, and it's gained a lot of traction. So on June 2nd, 3rd, and 4th of this year, county administration, the commissioners are bringing everyone in from Miami to Dallas to talk to us about how we can start changing that. It's really catching a lot of momentum that we want to start doing deflection centers and really start, I mean, we already have one, but that's a Band-Aid on a huge problem. We're really looking at how can we get folks who are mentally ill not going into the jail on the get-go, on the front end. So I'm excited to see where that goes. I actually have an appointment with one of our commissioners Monday to talk about some provisions that we have that are particular to our division. So I should have a report on that. I can know. So that's it.
So you mentioned Miami, so Judge Leifman's group,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah, so he's Judge Steve Leifman's national leader on this. He's been at some of our conferences. He's retired from the bench, but is continuing this work. And that's great that Dallas is pushing with them.
Yeah, and we've got materials and things. We'd be happy to share those. Miami has shared so much stuff with us and everything. So I'm happy to share that with this group and do whatever we can to help. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'd like to share an update with you. This is in the earliest of stages, but Adrian and I, and perhaps some others, are looking to explore how to get more of the parent and family perspective to help inform some of the work that's being done here and throughout the state of Texas. I can tell you anecdotally, for those who know pieces of my story, or perhaps more than that, that when I was on AOT, for example, under Judge Hazen in San Antonio in Bexar County, you know, even to the earliest parts of AOT, I had perhaps Judge Hazen and the AOT team having physical eyes on me maybe once a week to begin with, for maybe 10 or 15 minutes at a time. I'd also meet with a psychiatrist for 10 or 15 minutes, and I meet with my social worker a little longer, but that still leaves the vast majority of my waking hours not with eyes and ears on me. And my parents, thankfully, they were heavily involved when they needed to be. I'm thankful they don't need to be anymore, but for the time when they needed to be, they provided excellent insight to the entire AOT treatment team. And even for folks who are not on AOT, if we're really going to look to empower court systems and educate as part of our stated mission here, as part of this commission, it really makes sense if we find a way to get the perspective from parents, caregivers, family, care partners in general. And I do understand that will not be possible in every circumstance. There may be times family is not nearby. There may be times where family is completely cut out of the equation for one reason or another, as that happens sometimes. But for the instances where parents and caregivers do have that perspective and insight to share, if we aren't getting that insight from them, we are missing perhaps one of the most valuable perspectives that informs our work. Not because parents and caregivers should tell a judge how to do their job, or a doctor, or police, but because parents and caregivers often just have an incredible level of understanding that should, at the very least, be listened to and factored in. I can tell you in the nature of the work that I do, which is consulting directly with individuals and families impacted by serious mental illness, one of the things that I regularly hear, and this includes here in Texas for the clients I have here in the state, is we're trying to share valuable information with the courts. We're trying to share valuable information with the doctors. We're trying to share valuable information, and they keep reporting to me, they being individuals and families, that they're just not being listened to. And I do understand there could be a long list of reasons for that, but HIPAA is what's most often cited. And I am not a medical expert in here, but I can tell you, because it has been told to me 1,000,001 ways, there is nothing in HIPAA that prevents parents and family and caregivers from sharing information. Information going the other way might be more complicated, but there is nothing that stops parents and caregivers from being heard. And I also do understand that there's big backlogs in the court systems and people are extremely busy. And so taking in parent and caregiver perspective would add a lot of time that no one really has, which is one of the reasons I am happy to volunteer exploring a way with Adrian to get that perspective, because I'm not trying to add anything else to anyone's list of things to do. I want to be able to find perspective that we should be talking about and filter it and work with Adrian and perhaps others in a way that doesn't add time to anyone else in this room or anyone else throughout the state of Texas, just getting helpful information and perspective where it needs to go to help shape things. As far as the NGRI things, I infrequently work with folks like that. I have one client I meet with regularly who's NGRI, and honestly, he's one of the most friendly people that I've ever met, and I feel least threatened working with him than anyone else, because it's amazing what happens when someone finds a treatment regimen that works, because we don't punish the mental illness out of someone, y'all. We help, and so I'm grateful to see that's what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. I'm Judge Larry Phillips from Grayson County, and I just was at we have a judicial conferences annually, and then sometimes in the middle of the year we have judicial conference where it's just parts of regions of the state, and the next one. So I spoke at both of them this year. And I will tell you, I was in one of the classes, and JCMH, the praise was just going crazy. Here's the forms. It's right here. Oh, it's just wonderful. So I just want to applaud everybody for the hard work that's been done. Because I was sharing, I think the longer we're doing what we do, it's organic and it grows. Not everybody can get a hold of it. Not everybody can get into where some of us have been as courts, as judges, but it takes time, but it's working. And we just have to keep it up, and just we appreciate the Court of Criminal Appeals supporting us. It makes a difference, and thank y'all. So in my community, I shared, I think one of the last meetings, we got a grant for $1 million in our local mental health authority, but our behavioral health leadership team, which I previously chaired, been on the board. We got $1 million, and we were hoping to do a diversion center. We just couldn't afford it. The money wasn't there long term to keep it up. And so what we've done is we've embedded now in our 2 largest cities and in our sheriff's department a mental health professional that's there during the day through about 10 o'clock at night. And they are LMHA employees. And so they're co-responders. They're there with them so that when they get a call for somebody, oftentimes they may know them. But so we're trying to do the diversion that way, trying to find solutions before that. It's been very successful. We had a pilot program with one of our cities, and it's been highly effective. It was nice to have some funds to do that. Because of the work we do, I got a call from the police department. Hey, we've got this person that keeps, it's a problem in our community. What can we do? If we take her into custody, she's not going to be prosecuted because she's not going to ever be competent. That's been established. She hasn't had electricity since 24. She doesn't have running water. She's lost her card that lets her get money on her money that she gets from the government. And so what do we do? And so just the cool thing is, and we're trying not to be long about this, we had a meeting at our LMHA. We had our LMHA members there from the top to the bottom. We had the police. We had somebody from the district attorney's office. I was there. Our other judge who would actually hear commitment hearings and stuff was not there because he doesn't need to be involved in that kind of a meeting. And we got a plan. And one of the other people were there, this is kind of where I'm going, is our mental health diversion coordinator. because we were one of the grant recipients the first time. And we had a great meeting, and she said, and we were like, well, we're really struggling to find a guardian. How do, we're just having some, and I know everybody in a lot of our smaller communities has that problem. And because she was there with us and at the table, she says, we have just placed somebody in this other community that has an amazing guardianship program going, and they will come here. So the police, the assistant police chief has been in touch with the son who lives in another city. The son does not want to be guardian. He's kind of stepped back, but we're going to get him to apply for it. Connect him though with the attorneys at this other place. The city got the city manager to turn the water back on without having to pay the money that had been paid. In the process of trying to get electricity established, she didn't have an ID. We're getting an ID. We found an ID with her number so we can go online and do it. I don't mean me, people in our group. That's what we have to do. That's what all of you do. So thank you for doing that. And thank JCMH for our diversion coordinator to help us figure these things out. And I'm looking forward to the next 5 that have one. And I think all the thoughts about, we didn't know what data we needed to collect. None of us really did when we started this. That's why we did it. That's why it was a pilot program. And so I think this is a fantastic way to go forward. So sorry to take so long, but keep up the good work, everybody.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Steve Wallop. I'm with the Texas Hospital Association. Just a couple of things, maybe 3. Want to publicly thank Christy for participating in a recent behavioral health roundtable discussion that we held at THA, primarily consisting of hospital representatives, but Christy was there and was generous with her time and giving her perspective and the perspective of the commission on some of the issues that we were discussing and grappling with. We also had Scott Rubin from the Police Chiefs Association. I thought it was a really good discussion. I can tell you that our members found Christy and Scott's participation to really be invaluable, to have that perspective. And I hope the reverse is also true. So kind of some recurring themes that were discussed, the need for a better continuum of care and to stop the revolving door, the effect of unfunded patients and uncompensated care on the sort of the already precarious situation that the behavioral health continuum consistently finds itself in, and just sort of the fragmentation of the system, and opportunities for more collaboration between participating entities handling frontline crisis, whether it's hospitals, law enforcement, the judiciary. So we're sort of digesting the results of that discussion, and we'll hopefully be able to share a report out on that sometime soon. But thank you, Christy, for being there. Another issue that I wasn't sure I would bring up, but I'll just go ahead and go for it, is court costs. There have been some recent changes by some larger counties and probably others that I'm not aware of, that we've been hearing about from hospitals and others, other behavioral health providers, related to the either changing the way that court costs and filing fees are charged, or instituting charging court costs to private parties who are filing mental health applications. We have heard that those rollouts have been bumpy in some ways, and I think some of those issues are being worked through, but others I think remain. And what it ultimately does is impact access to the courts in these really dire, critical situations that could ultimately have an impact on patients. And so we're really concerned about that. I don't want to belabor just the financial piece and the cost piece, but that is also a significant concern in those counties that did not previously charge court costs to private entities that are now doing so. We will be gathering information on kind of the financial impact, but the behavioral health reimbursement in general is not not particularly generous, even for private insurance and private pay patients. And those facilities, frankly, do not have a lot of room and a lot of financial capacity to incur what probably will ultimately be hundreds of thousands, if not even millions of dollars in fees that have to be paid by those private entities. Sometimes they're patients who have little hope for being paid for. Now, I know that the statute does allow for reimbursement of court costs paid for individuals who are Medicaid eligible or unfunded or I believe LMHA funded. And that's certainly a positive, but we have also heard that those counties that have started charging court costs, there may not be a very well-defined process, at least at this point, for what that reimbursement would look like or how it was supposed to work. And ultimately, even when that is, better established, it is, something that's going to have to be paid in arrears, and those facilities will have to be fronting those costs. So it's a concern, and I just wanted to go ahead and put that out there. And then the last thing is the situation in San Antonio, and I won't spend a lot of time on this, but you all may be aware, particularly if you're in the region, that there is a private facility that has basically been taken off of line and has significantly impacted the inpatient capacity in that region. They are operating a few beds, but a significant portion of the inpatient capacity in that region is at least temporarily offline and temporarily and indefinitely. So it's a big concern, and we've already heard that it is having an impact on the way patients are navigated. Patients, under emergency detentions and patients who need to be involuntarily committed. Someday, I think that'll be an interesting case study. Again, kind of looking at how precarious our capacity is here in the state in certain regions, and what happens when some of that capacity is kind of suddenly lost. But now's not the time for that. But it is a concern right now. Just wanted to mention it to you all if you were not aware. But I appreciate being able to be on the commission. I've said it before, I think, but I do commend the Supreme Court, the Court of Criminal Appeals, for giving the private healthcare provider industry kind of a voice at this table. Sometimes I look around the room and think to myself, the old Sesame Street thing. One of these things is not like the other. But I do appreciate it, and thank you, and it's good to see everybody.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Wayne Young. I'm the CEO of the Harris Center for Mental Health and IDD right now. So I over the next quarter, I am transitioning to a new role. I'm going to be the CEO of the Texas Behavioral Health Center that's being opened in partnership with HHSC and UT Southwestern. It's a 292 bed, roughly a third forensic, a third adult civil, and a third pediatric. And then I'll also be serving as the Vice President of Behavioral Integration and Partnerships with UT Southwestern Health System. I'm trying to help further integration of behavioral health throughout their system of care. But at the Harris Center and in Harris County, we have quite a few things going on. The biggest one is in the next 2 weeks, we are going to be opening in partnership with the City of Houston, a 222 bed residential homeless service center. Notice I didn't say the word shelter. I don't think any of us, in fact, I told them, if you want to run a shelter, we're not the people to pick. So it is intended to be a more therapeutic environment, easy access, high therapeutic intervention for individuals who are unhoused, and particularly relevant to this group. Law enforcement has been a little bit limited in their ability to enforce some of the civility ordinances and stuff because they didn't have an alternative place. So this is an alternative place. And so we're excited that it's going to be looked at as more of a therapeutic intervention than just a heavy-handed moving people around. We also, since we met last, we've expanded our state hospital step-down beds, continue to receive great success with that. We've been able to keep open our youth diversion center. It was frankly almost days away from having to close through partnership with PDCJ and DFTS, as well as Houston Juvenile Probation Department. We started the process of creating a publicly viewable bed registry and bed board showing occupancy and availability of beds across at least publicly funded. I don't know that our private partners are going to want to do that, but if you've got beds, including us. So now if you think about all of the beds that we operate, once we get these 222 open with the city, we'll have about 700 beds that we operate across the community. And so I think we need some transparency and visibility into that. We also have a pilot that we've just renewed with the county and one of the criminal court judges to create transitional housing for those that have been restored and help them in a very supportive way transition into the community with more supports from jail. And then we've also recently partnered with the Harris County District Attorney's Office to create a mental health support initiative for surviving family members of victims of violent crimes and being able to connect them to services and supports directly through their interaction with the police office. I appreciate the opportunity to give you those updates.
Thank you. My name is Beth Lawson. I'm the CEO of the local mental health IDD and substance use authority in Lubbock. We have a new hospital coming online. I think you've heard me talk over the last several years, 3 to be exact, that we were blessed with funding to expand our existing 30-bed unit. The bottom fell out with COVID and the steel prices went through the roof. And so we were actually blessed with funding for 15 additional beds, which turned into about 5 beds with the cost of steel. And so we went back to the drawing board with our community and were able to take advantage of some funding that came to Texas because of the economy, the high price of oil, specifically when we had the highest tax receipts in probably modern history and in modern future. And so we were able to.
You haven't gotten this month's yet.
No, that's right. That's right. We had some real champions in the legislature. And so not only did we expand the existing Sunrise Canyon Hospital, but we're doubling it. So we're going from 30 beds to 60 beds. We have had a diversion program for years and years. We've had retrofit our staff back into, I like to say, a little broom closet. And we had you're not supposed to say cubicles, but we had a cubicle area where we took all those out. We made an extended observation unit. And so we have been a diversion program waiting for a building. And our city and county actually donated some of their federal ARPA funds to get us a building. We are all but finished with the exception of some back ordered doors. Can't really operate without doors, even though we don't close. So I said we can operate without doors. But we're about to open those 2 locations that will really be a representation of many years of work in our community to keep diversion and inpatient services very close to home. We're very, very excited about that. And we will extend an invitation to the Judicial Commission on Mental Health, all the commissioners and the Collaborative Council, because we'd really like for you to come see what a community-based service looks like. In addition to that, we are fast and furiously working with the state to understand the Rural Texas Strong funding that has come to Texas. Texas was actually the biggest beneficiary of services for the Rural Healthcare Transformation Act out of the One Big Beautiful Bill, the HR 1. There was lots of money designated for rural mental health services. And so we are very fortunate in that we have a urban area, small urban. I don't even look at my partner over here because, yeah, our small urban is really his frontier area. But we support also rural and frontier areas. And so there are funds that are coming through that Rural Texas Strong initiative that will benefit all of us. You do not have to be a rural county. If you serve rural constituents, you can apply. So just be aware that your local mental health authorities are really looking at that, and that is an opportunity to expand some services into rural areas. So that's it.
Hi, everybody. My name is Adrienne Kennedy. I'm playing with my phone because I have my notes here. I wrote emails out from London yesterday. I had to go to London with my husband for a podcast that he was on. So anyway, add to, yeah. We flew out Sunday and came back yesterday. Maggie, could you come on over here because we're going to announce together. I've been working on. My name tag says I'm the past president of NAMI. Past president means I was on the NAMI National Board from 2014, and then on the executive committee from 2016 to 2022, when my past president position rolled to another past president. So, but I'm still very active because I'm also a national trainer in many of the NAMI programs. And one of the things I've been working on is to, and by the way, this commission has been so important in my life, I cannot tell you. It's been part of the healing that I needed after we lost our son to severe mental illness, type 1 diabetes, and judicial involvement, some of which worked and some of it didn't give us the opportunities that we were hoping and praying for. And I'm going to be asking to present at the summit this year because I'm really ready to give you the thanks that you all deserve, each and every one of you. Because of the complexity of mental health conditions and judiciary as they start to overlap in these realms, I think it needs all the it needs the kind of teamwork that this commission has created. I would have never met Maggie had it not been for this commission. I would have never met most of the rest of you. And by the way, I have a particular interest in NGRI because two of my now dear friends actually lost their husbands and the fathers of their family to the severe mental illness of their sons, each of them. Leslie, I have her name written down because I knew I would do this. I would forget her name, but Rita Abdelrahim, both of their sons killed their fathers in front of the family in very tragic circumstances. And the tragedy is long lasting, as you can well imagine. But the important thing here is that there are always lessons to be learned, always lessons to be learned. And these women now, I believe, are ready to also speak their gratitude for the NGRI opportunities that at least didn't have them lose another one of their family members, if you can understand. Okay, so, and the healing that goes on is an everlasting process, for sure. I also, Dr. Maureen Burrows, who's a forensic psychiatrist here in Austin, Texas, as many of you know her, she came forward both to me and to Professor Shannon last session to ask, and it was a little bit late in that session, to ask about our looking at the NGRI, because she's concerned as a forensic psychiatrist that the judges are prohibited in Texas, or at least some of them believe they are, by the way they read the statutes, from actually detailing what happens with an NGRI verdict and what's the sequence of that, and et cetera, et cetera. So that's a conversation that we can take further and further. So anyway, the reason I'm holding this because otherwise my phone will shut off and I'll forget something. I've been working at the national level to find a way for us to NAMI to provide NAMI the presentation called NAMI Provider to the judiciary, but have it in language that meets your taxonomy, that meets your needs and interests, to learn from peers, people with mental health conditions, and also family peers, and I consider myself a family peer. So as Eric mentions us, we are peers in different domains, both as individuals and as family members. And and then also to get the judiciary peers among us who can speak to this issue and bring out a 4-hour presentation. NAMI has used this provided program across the country for almost 10 years now, but it's never had a translation into the judiciary. So I've now gotten permission at the national level from the head of this program for national to have us look at the entire program and change it to the language that's necessary and that's most effective for the judiciary to be part of that learning opportunity. It's kind of mental health on steroids and mental health awareness on steroids to give those perspectives that will enrich our taxonomy and our understanding, our deep understanding. So Maggie and I became friends over this, meeting each other in this commission. And I said, well, have you ever heard of NAMI Provider? And could we do something? And then, of course, putting all those pieces together, and we have permission now from National to get the training materials in our hands, Maggie's hands, your hands, anybody who's interested, and modify the language so that it is very judiciary relevant and oriented. With the same, and it's always 3 presenters for 4 hours. So it's a very, very well-tailored, well-developed program. We're in the stages now of just getting the manuals into our hands so that we can make the changes and make the language modifications that we'd like. And we'll see how it rolls out. And my hope is that we have not only the training in El Paso to get it kicked off in the next month or so, and then have the first presentations where we can report on it at the summit. Do you want to say hello?
Okay, good morning, everyone. Magdalena Morales-Zaina, Maggie's Fine, and I am the director for El Paso County Community Supervision and Corrections Department. So that's a long word for adult probation. I was a mental health officer for the first 17 years of my career, and 15 years ago in June, I was appointed the director. My mental health background has really helped me navigate a system that I needed to learn to help my clients. So when Ms. Kennedy was so gracious enough to give me her time and we collaborated, and I actually met Ms. Kennedy when Christy and Ms. Kennedy came to do our train the trainer on trauma informed and also on motivational interviewing. So how do we engage individuals? And through our dialogue, one of the things that I recommended based on my lived experience in working with justice involved individuals is that we have had peer coaches and peer navigators for quite some time now. But we need a specialized individual who not only has a diagnosed mental illness or substance use disorder and is in recovery, but we need people who understand the criminal legal system. Because what folks need is how to navigate the system within itself. So that to me is a more specialized peer, which is what Ms. Kennedy and I have been talking about, and kind of what really building on what Eric's already developed, is that real niche of making sure that people who are helping other people navigate a system understand it and have been successful in understanding it to where they can teach it. Because that is the biggest part. We can give somebody instruction, and many times, as we learned, the family support is no longer there for many reasons, because a person has had, damaged those relationships. So they need to establish another family, if you will, that's gonna help support and help that person navigate to where they get to the point where they're self-sustaining, and hopefully recruit them to become those peers for the next generation. So that's what we've been working on, and I'll bring the component of helping her create her vision, because it's really Ms. Kennedy's vision and her passion, and I'm gonna give my small part in helping her implement them into the sequential intercept map, just the way the benchmark book was designed, and how do we teach peers to go from already sentenced to back to zero when somebody has a civil commitment. So that's what we wanna do, is really specialize in the forensic part, but really a person who understands every one of the intercepts, but also has the ability to navigate and to help somebody else navigate that system.
I'd like to add to what, is it still on or did I turn? Okay, is it, was that? Okay, just. Maggie and I together could burn out this microphone, don't you know? All right. But you can imagine, I was in the middle of my PhD dissertation at UT in education, when finally I had to actually surrender my candidacy, resign from my candidacy, and 7 other people on the grants that I had written, 7 other people got their PhDs, but I didn't. But I'm now doing my own little personal PhD, and the learning curve is very steep. Can you imagine? My husband and I are professional academics, and at the same time, we were clueless, absolutely clueless. And of course, our son told his court-appointed attorney that he didn't want him to speak to us. Of course, except when my son would call us from the jail and say, "You got to get my attorney out here. You need to tell the secretary to get him to come and see me at the jail." So it's a steep climb. It's a steep learning curve, and if we can improve the learning curve in every direction for all the different perspectives that are involved. And by the way, I want to also give a shout out to the fact that the ICD-10, which is like our DSM-5, but in Europe and across other parts of the world, the ICD-10 is now named anosognosia as a diagnosis. I think this is very important because it also complicates the pleas and all the other proceedings in a judicial setting. And we need to understand also the dynamics of anosognosia, which is not denial, but in fact, where the brain absolutely blocks away any recognition of illness. And that's a very different thing, okay? And our son, and 50% of all people with schizophrenia have anosognosia during their crisis periods, and 45% of people with bipolar 1 have anosognosia. It is not denial, it is actually like having a stroke and not, but the name came actually from a stroke, from a doctor who was tending to strokes in France in the 1900s. That's where the name came from, because a person who's had a stroke oftentimes tries to get out of bed because they don't know they've had a stroke. All right, so it's obfuscating that whole area of our understanding. So we have a lot of work to do. I'm so grateful for each and every one of you and the work that you do each day, and the fact that there is such a thing as the Judicial Commission on Mental Health and IBD. Thank you.
And if you want to participate, please let me know.
because we'll need a lot of people to read this material and put the right words in, okay? That's it.
And I'm Judge Matt Hand, Potter County Court, Law Number 2. That's Amarillo for people who aren't familiar with Panhandle. I did have the pleasure of working this session with the work group on specialty courts and Judge Carr, and seeing process develop of trying to get a pilot program for regional mental health courts. Statute authorizes me as a regional court. It's very difficult to get started working with some of the communities. But the format that Judge Carr came up with, which I think is actually a good format, is it structured a little bit more like CPS court, where the judge would actually travel and would not necessarily be an elected sitting judge, but more of an appointed magistrate kind of position. So by being able to travel, that will make it much easier for our rural counties to be able to participate. One of the difficulties I run into, even talking to counties that are close to mine, is the transportation of getting their participant to court, and also staffing with their probation department. For just 1 or 2 participants, that transportation time obligation bothers some of the probation departments. So I could travel there so they would not have to worry about their travel time, and bring with me the team, mental health authority, and some of our social workers that we work with through our probation department. That would be a game changer in terms of some of these smaller counties that only have a few participants. So we start seeing that come up. It's a great concept, and the format Judge Carr came up with, I think, will be a very good one.
Good morning, Courtney Harvey. I serve right now as the Associate Commissioner for the Office of Mental Health Coordination, which is within the Behavioral Health Services Division at the Texas Health and Human Services Commission. I say right now because we have been doing some reorganizing at the Health and Human Services Commission. So effective 6/1, I'll actually transition from the position that I hold today to serving as the Associate Commissioner for Mental Health Programs. So I've said to people internal to the agency who have asked me, how do you feel about this transition? I said, I feel like I'm going back home. When I came to the state, I started out running programs, and I have the pleasure now of being able to serve as the Associate Commissioner over that area. So what does that mean when I say I'll be the Associate Commissioner over mental health programs? We're talking about community-based mental health services. So that includes children's mental health services, adult mental health services, crisis services, jail diversion and forensic services, behavioral health advisory committees, and then a few specialized behavioral health Medicaid programs such as youth empowerment services and home and community-based services, adult mental health. So I say that to say that I avail myself to you all as a resource. Many of you all have been in contact with me in my current role, but I'm looking forward to working with you all. I know, Emily, I'm very excited to be working with you, right? I've served in positions where I have influence, but I have no real authority. And so I'm like, well, I can recommend this to such and such in this other part of the agency, but I can't really be the decision maker. So now I get to be the decision maker, sort of a first level of decision making. So I'm excited about that. And more to come. I'll also say that, again, to the point of reorganizing, what I just mentioned is happening at the divisional level. Beyond our division, many of you were probably familiar with our prior Chief Program Services Officer, Michelle Aletto. She vacated her position earlier in the year, and as part of the reorganization, our division, and not just community-based behavioral health services, but also our health and specialty care division, which is led by Scott Shacklin and includes state hospital and state supported living center services, as well as our IDD services area. We are now combined in one division under Jordan Dixon, whose title is the Chief Behavioral Health, Disability, and Aging Services Officer. So I think the intent of these modifications or reorganizations is to really help us to facilitate internally thinking about our services along the continuum. That might be surprising to people who would say, but you all are all under Health and Human Services. Don't you naturally think about yourself along the continuum? And I think that we do. But as you all know, as you undergo reorganizations, You can sometimes have the experience of maybe being a child of a divorced parent. It's like, well, what is mom? You're going over to mom's house this weekend? Well, I'm at dad's house. Well, what does dad allow you to do? Oh, I can't do that at mom's house, et cetera, et cetera. That might be a bad example, but I think it is illustrative of some of the things that you can really kind of struggle with when you've been reorganized as many times as we have within the last several years. So I'm very much looking forward to continuing to work with our partners in health and specialty care as well as in IDD services, and really digging into our policies, our procedures, developing joint program services, jointly overseeing those services, et cetera. And then of course, that expands, that's in-house, but I'm looking at some of our other state agency partners that I know that we've been working very closely with, particularly you all who are justice involved, working with justice involved populations at TJJD and at TDCJ, et cetera. And so again, just very much looking forward to continuing our partnerships from within this space within the organization.
Good morning, I'm Cindy Porter Gore. I'm the Director of Juvenile Services for Collin County. Collin County is directly north of Dallas County. My county is
Grayson County.
We stop at Grayson, yes we do. Yes. Grayson's gonna be getting what we have here very soon. But we're 1.3 million, and I would say probably 75% of that is in the southern half of my county. So I have some rural areas. However, most of those rural areas are now some of the fastest growing towns, soon to be cities in the nation. I have been blessed in that Takumi and TJJD created a liaison pilot program where they've given 5 counties a liaison to come into the juvenile departments through the local mental health authority to help connect to services. And I have Ms. Alexandria Anderson. No, none of you can have her. She is a godsend. In 41 days, we've referred 48 of our youth and families to her. Of those, she's connected basically 43 of those families. Well, I need to take that back. About 40 of those families, because there's a couple, when I talked to her the other day, she hadn't had a chance to actually intake yet. She is doing everything from specialized services. She's a licensed therapist and meeting with the kids weekly or bi-weekly, connecting them to the local mental health authority, Life Path system. She can do an intake in my office. So instead of us saying, hey, you need to go to Life Path, go through their intake process, because we need to get you a psychiatric assessment, some medication, some counseling, whatever. But they get lost going to that office. She now meets with those families in my probation officer's offices, does the intake right then and connects them to service. And even better, if they're not indigent and needing our local mental health authority, she's helping connect my affluent families with private services and really helping with the transitioning of my kids who are in my post program that can be up to a year in my detention center, where they're getting therapy and education to help them transition back into the free world and help stabilize those families so that they can run with that. I believe this is really going to be a game changer. We're already seeing our jobs being so much easier in that she's connecting all of them. The other thing I wanted to throw out is Judge Liston has been speaking at the Texas Municipal Courts Education Center this year in all of their trainings on JCMH. And I had the honor to be asked to step in to do her presentation for her. And just so happens, I think God thought that was a good thing, because at our State Bar Juvenile Justice Conference, we had a speaker back out at the last minute, and I offered to step up and do that, and was able to combine both Judge Liston's PowerPoint with Molly Davis's PowerPoint. And the thing that I've really been pushing to all of my chiefs and the other juvenile system is the innovations map. I was at the new chiefs conference last week. There were 20 new chiefs. I was the only urban chief there. Most of these chiefs have less than 5 people on staff for their entire department, and it was adult and juvenile. And what I told them was, go to this map. When you're needing to find your local mental health authority, if you don't know who that is, it's there. If you're needing to find housing, if you're needing to find food assistance, all of those community supports that I believe is the solution to sustaining what my department's doing and keeping a child shallow and pushing them out, because they'll wrap around and provide those families those services long after we're gone. I'm like, that's where you need to look. And if there's something in your county that you don't know about, you let me know. I will get you in contact with JCMH. So kudos to this innovations map. I have gotten some big whenever I show them this and say, guys, it's right here and it's only growing. So thank you very much.
I'm Connie Almeida, and I'm the Director of Behavioral Health Services for Fort Bend County, which looks a lot like Collin County. I think we're at 1 million. So, but also, if you know about Fort Bend County, we're one of the most diverse counties in the country and also very fast growing. So with that, a lot of opportunities, a lot of challenges. So just a little bit about myself, and because people will go behavioral health services, that's the local community mental health center. It's not, although I have had the privilege of working for the local community mental health center and also state supported living center. So that's kind of kids, IDD, people with mental illness, complex needs, substance abuse. And I'm also a school psychologist. So I love what I do. But this department was actually created almost 16 years ago. It'll be 16 years in October by the Council of Judges. So we started out with me, half-time, funded through a grant, and it was really the judges, we need help. We have nothing, we don't have any mental health services in our jail. We don't know what to do with these people, help us. And I was like, okay, I'll help you for about 3 months and we'll move on. And we're not. So we are now, we were under the Council of Judges, moved under Commissioner's Court a couple of years ago, 2018. And now we have, I think I have 16 full-time staff that are county funded. So we shifted, I always believe that, where there are gaps, usually have to pull in some grant money, demonstrate value, go to commissioners, does this make sense? So we've been able to do that and really leverage federal dollars like the 1115 waiver to develop our crisis intervention team. We've developed jail diversion programs, support youth diversion. And many of you know that we started with our infant toddler court, really looking at the youngest victims of child abuse in our system, the 0 to 3 population. And I was honored to work with Judge Ronald Polk and Judge Bonnie Helms to develop that. And right now I'm taking a pause because doing a lot of this work, demonstrating value, commissioner support, and I'm like, what are we doing? What are our outcomes? And so and I co-chair the data committee. So when we talk about data portals, because we know this, so everybody's collecting data, kind of trying to measure what we do, but really what are the outcomes? And really having to revisit, like, why does this matter? And so a difficult discussion, but a really important discussion of like, where do we fit into the system? Which is about informing courts, helping our justice partners, filling in the gaps, demonstrating value, in building that capacity around data. So I really do need to meet with your new person because yes, data that's accessible, that's accurate, and informs effective programs. I'm a clinician, but data is critical to really measuring what we do. But I want to talk a little bit about, most people know I work with kids and I work with diversion, but we also do the forensic work in Fort Bend County. So we do, I would say 99% of the competency to stand trial evaluations, and we do NGRI evaluations. We also do
condition upon evaluations, we also manage all the magistrate, the 1622 assessments, which has become a very large task for the department. And, you know, and again, we've gotten to a point where we're doing the tasks, but how is it informing the system? So taking that pause to look at what's informing the system, because right now there's this burnout, like from the docs that work for me, they're like, okay, we've seen this person twice for the competency evaluation. We determined this, and you know, the court didn't respond, or they were sent on bond, or so we're looking at all, or why are we getting orders on misdemeanors? You know, the person times out when they go to the state hospital for the competency restoration, yet the code allows that. So we're looking at all these issues. So, and again, the NGRI, a couple of years ago, we maybe would get 1 or 2 NGRI orders a year. Right now, because of the growth and the increased attention to it, and I'm glad it's being addressed, you know, we're doing maybe 3 evaluations a month. So I can pull some data, but again, we're the providers. We're the ones doing the evaluations. And so that's where we are. The data systems are critical. We're working with our mental health courts. We're working with our judges to really look at what are the needs and how do we support it, but then also how do we evaluate what we're doing and what happens to people in our system. I mean, I love the SIMS model. And I think it provides an amazing framework for us to develop programs, but also to evaluate what happens. That's me.
Good morning, I'm Emily Eisenman, one of our Deputy Division Directors with the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, Rehabilitation and Reentry Division, as well as the Texas Correctional Office on Offenders with Medical and Mental Impairments, also known as TACOMI. I don't have any real specific updates, you know, my name was long enough. But so happy to hear my last few updates when I've been able to join you in my director, April Zamora's stead. I've kind of shared some of the legislative updates that we had, some of our agencies' reorganizations, and really excited to hear some of our fellow partners here share how those funds have shifted, how some of our operations shifted are positively impacting them. So always excited to hear that. Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. Hi, I'm Denise Onken. I'm a retired executive bureau chief with Harris County District Attorney's Office. And for those of you who don't know, Harris County is Houston. I guess the largest jurisdiction in the state. And one of the things people always ask me is, now that you're retired from the DA's office, you know, are you still involved in the mental health realm? And last night when I was going through the brochure, all the information to prepare for the meeting, I thought, well, let me just jot down a couple of things. And so one of the things I was asked to do this year is speak to the University of Houston mental health law class. A friend of mine does that class there. I know Christy speaks there as well for Melinda. And so I was unable to do it this year, last minute. My husband had some serious health issues. He was in ICU for a couple of months at the hospital. But, you know, that's one of the things that I've seen certainly progress is our law schools really getting even more involved, Professor Shannon, with the mental health realm. We're kind of behind tech in that regard in the Houston area, but I'm continually seeing that. One of the other organizations that I'm involved in on the board is our Albert Schweitzer Fellowship Foundation. And one of the things, mostly it's medical students and residents who do fellowships for projects in the community, some mental health related, IDD related, so very, very impressive. But the law schools in the Houston area were not involved. And so I was able to bring my alma mater, South Texas College of Law, on with 2 fellows for the next year who will be doing a project. And as we interview potential fellows each year, and this Albert Schweitzer brings on about 80 plus fellows per year, provide a small stipend. Those are community projects that are done in the community, a lot mental health, IDD related types of projects, but couple of the individuals I interviewed this year, it's kind of unusual, just the day I signed up for as a board member, was the Moores School of Music, which is part of the University of Houston. And they have a music therapy program there. And you wouldn't think that a lawyer would necessarily be into music therapy or anything like that. But as my husband was in ICU, one of the things that came around through the hospital was a music therapist. So I learned a lot about that, and I saw the benefits of that for someone who has a health-related condition. So as these two interviewees who happen to be undergrads, which typically the fellowships are not necessarily for undergrads because we do a lot of med students and residents and certainly law students now, was to talk to them about it, and they were amazed that I, with my background, knew a lot about music therapy, and so their proposal was to do some music therapy for the homeless population in our community. And the mental health realization that that's going to provide for those individuals some help in that regard. So I do see continued things in that realm. The last thing that I want to mention is because I have some rural property in a rural county, I get a little involved over there. So I'm in a women's organization. It's actually a Christian women's organization in Colorado County. And this organization, although you would think it's rural, they raise about $50,000 per year at their annual fundraiser. And so one of the things is, as this money is handed out by that organization, which I've now joined, is the mental health realm. And so there are local community projects and entities that they are giving that money to in that smaller jurisdiction, which helps me to remember and learn that there are many jurisdictions over the state that still need a lot of help, financially, in regard to making sure that individuals are not getting stuck in the jails who have some type of mental health issue, and it's a non-violent type offense. So anyway, those are just a few of the things that I have going on, and I really want to thank all the members of the commission, because I see, certainly as coming through fruition after almost 40 years at the DA's office and now moving into retirement and working with different programs and things like that, that you guys are having a lot of benefits across the state. So thank you for that.
I'm Dave Jan. I'm the judge of Denton County Probate Court number 1. Thanks to JCMH, I had a very busy spring. Went down to the Texas Association of Counties Conference in Bryan with Danielle and Michael Garcia from the JCMH, and we kind of held about a 45-minute pep rally for the smaller county judges on the benefits of the court liaison pilot program and how it could really benefit them in some of their coordination for finding services in those lesser served communities. We received some very positive feedback on that. I was invited to come down and speak on guardianship again in July, but unfortunately I'm going to be in Alaska, so can't make that trip. I did offer up Oscar Kaysen to go down there and entertain them as well. Immediately following that conference, we went to the Texas A&M Law Society, which is a undergraduate student group hoping to attend law school, and started planting the seed with them on the importance of mental health in their practice of law if they actually make it into that arena. And Michael, I apologize if I got the name of that organization wrong, but I'm going from memory. I wouldn't plan on taking notes on that. Also, the probate courts in Denton and Dallas County are working together to create a streamlined process for the North Texas Regional Veterans Administration medical network to refer homeless veterans who are under long-term medical treatment and don't have any family support and have some incapacity issues into court-initiated guardianships. That was a program that was announced by the VA probably 2 months ago in the Wall Street Journal, and we reached out to them to provide some state-level assistance to get some processes for North Texas on how to work with that. So Judge Cassiotti, as soon as we get that figured out for us, we'll be inviting you all to partake in that along with the Collin County courts. The biggest thing we did was the JCMH was asked to provide some input to the IDD Advisory Committee for the Texas Commission on Jail Standards. And we had an initial phone call conference with them, and then we were invited to their meeting, I'm going to say about 6 weeks ago, So myself, my attorney administrator from the Denton County Probate Courts, and Cameron Harris went and participated in that meeting. And what we were asked about was, what rights do people under a guardianship have while they're in these county detention facilities, both pre-conviction and post-conviction? The post-conviction side of it causes me great concern as a probate judge, because how are they getting convicted? Because there's nobody that has the authority to enter a plea for an incapacitated person. So we just kind of asked that question there, and the whole room kind of sat up and their eyes got real wide. So we agreed to talk about that at a later date. But one of the things that's a great concern to that committee is the TLET system has a guardianship query that's tied into the guardianship database maintained by the Judicial Grant Certification Commission. And it is not a mandatory search like the continuity of care query is. It's an optional search. And I will, if you're a district attorney's office represented here today and you're running a criminal history check, you might want to take that extra 30 seconds and run the guardianship query check. Because if your prosecutors are clean people who don't have capacity to plead, that could be an issue. With that, district and county attorney's offices run those criminal checks. The local law enforcement entities run those as well. I think that this advisory committee is going to recommend to the Texas Commission on Jail Standards that guardianship query be mandatory as opposed to just out there. Other questions concerned with where they were asking was the authority to consent to medical care and who has that. What's the law enforcement detention facility's duty of care to notify the guardian and court with guardianship jurisdiction that they have one of their protected persons in their facility. And then more importantly, once they're released from that facility, how do they get released? Who do they get released to, and who's taking care of them if those people have not been notified and have that supervisory responsibility? The advisory committee has come up with some proposed rule changes. That's not my venue, so I'll let them present those to their agency. I will add that we did have an opportunity to review those and provide input to those as a corporate jurisdiction over guardianship. And I kicked some of those around with other probate judges as well. So it was a huge opportunity for JCMH to kind of lean forward into an area that we're not necessarily talking about a lot. And I believe that we'll be invited to speak at the Governor's Advisory Committee on IDD individuals based on their chair being at that meeting as well. And being my business card and contact my core coordinator. So I think I'm gonna have to go to El Paso later. But with that, it was a very interesting conversation with folks who I normally don't speak with as a probate judge. Additionally, in Denton County, I'm about 6 weeks into our utilization of a telepsych provider to provide mental health evaluations and testimony in our involuntary commitment. We have an in-person psychiatrist 2 weeks a month and a telepsych provider 2 weeks a month. And it's working really, really well. And look forward to presenting on that at a later date for you all with a little bit long-term benefit. It's added us the ability to have additional psych support for our AOT program. And the guy we found to do it is really interested in remote jail-based competency restoration. And so is my county mental health director. So I have something else to talk about later in the fall.
All right, we're gonna take a break for lunch and pick up after lunch. We'll take about a 30-minute break. So let's get back at about 12:25. And thank you to the Court of Criminal Appeals for providing lunch for the meeting.
Well, I should make that. And I'm like, well, that was the whole story. And then I walked past oh yeah, I know you're as only a good chief of staff. Oh, no, he got a full buffalo Tickets are not like You might be able to go this summer.
hospitals and SSLCs. He asked me to give you all some construction updates, so I just wanted to let y'all know kind of where some of those projects are, and if you have any follow-up questions or anything else, you can always reach out after. So right now we have 9 projects under construction impacting 1,007 beds. At the end of this, there's 4 grants that will result in 332 additional mental health beds and a net increase of 717 HHSC-owned inpatient beds. So new facilities first, there's the Texas Behavioral Health Center Dallas, which will have an adult and pediatric unit. 292 bed total capacity, 200 adult, 92 pediatric. First patients are expected to be admitted in September 2026. The Panhandle State Hospital in Amarillo will have a capacity of 75 beds, 50 forensic, 25 civil, with first patient date anticipated for September 2027. And then the Terrell Center for Youth, which will be serving 30 youth ages 13 to 17 in DFPS conservatorship who have mental health conditions, substance use conditions, or intellectual and developmental disabilities. And the anticipated admitting date for that is September 2026. And then the Lubbock Psychiatric Center, 50 maximum security beds, first patient anticipated January 2028. We also have a few rebuild projects. So there's the Carroll State Hospital Replacement Hospital, capacity 275 beds, 150 of those will be forensic. Estimated move-in is November 2027. And then the Wichita Falls State Hospital Replacement Hospital, capacity 225 beds, estimated move-in in spring 2028. Then we have 2 expansion projects. So the San Antonio State Hospital Alamo Hall conversion to geriatric MSU. First patient anticipated March 2027. And then the Rio Grande State Center, new maximum security unit, and estimated first patient September 2027. So those are just some of the construction updates. An update on the wait list. So the forensic wait list as of yesterday morning was 1,606 individuals, which is down from the peak of 2,555 in November of 2022. And right now, the average wait for admission for a maximum security unit bed is 218 days. And average wait for a non-maximum security unit bed is 182 days. The last update that he wanted to provide is that we are working on exceptional items and getting prepared for legislative session. We can't share those quite yet, but those will be going public soon. And then just a few other things that our office is working on, the Office of Forensic Services and Coordination. So our jail in-reach program is now available statewide. So some of you might have participated in that jail in-reach learning collaborative where we provided education and support to county forensic teams. We saw a lot of benefit and impact of that program. And so now you don't have to apply, you don't have to be part of a cohort, you can reach out at any time. So if your county ever wants to talk about complex forensic cases, managing the forensic waitlist, what to do with your data, waitlist monitoring, expedited admissions, maximum security unit waivers, anything like that, please feel free to reach out to us. And there's going to be a landing page soon on HHSC's website, but you can just reach out. We want to give support to counties statewide. And then we also have a few studies that will be published soon. And one is focused on length of stay at our state hospitals and barriers to discharge, which I think is really relevant right now for those that are paying attention to Rider 56. That is looking at that kind of gap in intermediate care settings for people who no longer need an inpatient level of care, but also can't quite fit within the community. And then an evaluation of our outpatient and jail-based competency restoration programs, an implementation study that looks at how they're implemented, and that will come with some best practice guides for both urban and rural communities that are implementing those programs. So those are just a few updates from me today. I have to head out after this, but please feel free to reach out if you have other questions.
Hi, Scott Lepore. I'm a physician and the medical director at the Texas Juvenile Justice Department. Chandler Carter, our executive director, and Evan Norton, our deputy executive director, couldn't be here today, so I'm just filling in for them. I do have a few updates. I did want to mention, I talked to Dr. Almeida and Professor Shannon when you were talking about the continuity of care with prescriptions, I thought it may be helpful for others to hear. When, especially with psychiatric or psychotropics, and I'll say this is probably one of the biggest issues that I have to deal with on a daily basis is continuity of care of prescriptions when a provider changes. And even though there's rules, laws, legislation, you cannot mandate a physician write any specific prescription. So they have the independent or autonomy to write what they feel is appropriate. We'll see the biggest variance with providers, especially in psychiatry, because of the lack of evidence-based approaches as well. So only about a third of what's considered standard of care for child and adolescent psychiatry is really that has robust evidence-based research behind it. So there's a lot of variance on how a provider's trained, what they feel comfortable writing, what they want to continue using. And so this is where they come from the free world, as we say, or detention center. They come into our secure facilities and the medications change. So I get legal guardian phone call, what's happening, what's going on, and then have to explain it. And then there's also variances with formularies, like Dr. Almeida mentioned. But especially like with UTMB in our contract, they have 340B pricing, which is millions of dollars gained for the state of Texas. But there's a lot of rigidity on what they can write, what they cannot write, who dispenses it, these types of regulations. So even though it seems to a lot of people, they're like, why can't they just write the same medication? There is a lot of complexities and layers that go into those decisions. I wish it was easier, my job would be easier, but I just wanted to share that I thought it might be beneficial just for people to understand a little bit of the complexities. With our updates, in the 88th legislative session, TJJD was approved for 2 new bills. They did their feasibility studies with location and staffing, and the last legislative session, they were appropriated, given that information, more specific or appropriate allocation of funds that to meet the bills. And we've had to make some scale backs and cutbacks. And we think we will break ground by fall, and we're anticipating completion in spring of 2029. The 2 facilities, they're both 104 beds, and one will be for more violent offenders, and the other one will be for higher acuity mental health needs. And I've been here for 7 years, and I can tell you significantly, we have seen an increase in acuity of mental health needs. And I don't know that I fully comprehend this part, but also medical. But our medical needs have also, when I staff with our family physicians, we joke that this is the Nelson's Pediatric Club, the textbook on pediatrics, because the complexities of youth we're getting. But those new bills are looking beautiful by blueprint, and then what they are anticipating the facilities look like. And I think they will be a wonderful resource for our youth, and for meeting the needs to establish public safety and reentry in the community. I want to give a shout out. So I was talking to Dr. Durham, and we acquired Matt Smith, who some of you may know, Williamson County, who's the assistant director, came over to TJJD about a year ago, and Judge Porter-Gore, I think it's part of his team that established these liaisons and partnership with Meadows. And I'll give credit, I'll say this as an employee experiencing the changes going on at TJJD. Previously, Camille King was the first executive director we had when I arrived. She was making changes, and they were evidence-based, they were aligned, which is why I moved to the state of Texas to help join the team. When Chandler Carter took over, it is a hurricane whirlwind of change, and it's all effective. It's evidence-based approaches. It is crazy how much she is revamping reentry, probation, bringing in Matt Smith. And we're seeing the gains. It's incredible. She's really rewriting our organization in an incredible way. So I just am thrilled that Chandler's leading the ship, and excited to see what she continues to do. I will say that I get tired occasionally. I'm like, oh my gosh, how much change can we do? And then she'll say, okay, for 6 weeks, I'm gonna not give any more new change. And next week at the next meeting, there's more change. So we know that doesn't happen, but it is wonderful to see. With Matt's team and partnering with Meadows, TJJD is about to break the record on new diversions for our agency, so it's really effective. And I want to give a shout out to JCMH, which I have always appreciated. I'm so thankful to be a part of the team. And what I see, and I was talking to Dr. Harvey about this earlier, and when I first met Dr. Harvey, we would occasionally have lunch and just share our passion for the system, what we saw would be beneficial for the youth, how we could be effective and help them. And it felt a little lonely, but we had our people. And then with JCMH and others, it's starting to align those people. And it's starting to give information in context to different agencies and what their needs are and why there seems to be concerns or disruptions. But it's really understanding what their difficulties are. People really are doing the best they can with the tools that they have, and then learning what tools people need. So as we've utilized like JCMH and the partnership, not only are we changing things for the future, but it's really aligning a lot of people, and there's strength in numbers, and I just see change happening exponentially. But I couldn't be more grateful for one participating, and maybe that's a little on the selfish side, but the fact that you all exist and the changes you're making is just so, I love it. It's my passion and my joy, and I'm just so thankful for everybody.
Good afternoon. I'm Brenda Keller, and I'm the Director of the Mental Health Department at the Texas Veterans Commission. I'm new to this commission. This is my first meeting, and I'm fairly new. I'm within my first year still at the Texas Veterans Commission. My background is military mental health. I am a mental health provider, and I was an active duty mental health provider in the Air Force for about 10 years. I am still serving. I'm in a Air Force Reserve unit out of Fort Worth, Texas. And I was telling somebody I deployed last year. So I definitely, military mental health is my passion. I would say, again, we have a lot of moving parts in our department, but one of the things that's really shifted rapidly for us, there was a bill passed last year that last session that required all jails to verify veteran status and then to inform us. And so we are now, not that it's a new issue, but I guess we now are extremely aware of how many veterans are getting arrested every day. And the number is pretty large. And so we're rapidly trying to think through how we can, address this problem. We do have peer support specialists or peer support coordinators that are veteran peer support coordinators. We need more. We have about 60 embedded in the different mental health facilities across the state. We definitely need more, but one of our thoughts was right now, our peer support coordinators are sort of what you would consider like generalists, but we were thinking that maybe we could try to have kind of specialty peer support coordinators that have their own background in the justice system, and then now feel, because some of our peer support coordinators, they don't love going into the jails. It's kind of not their thing. But we have some that are really great at it. So just trying to strengthen and grow the staff and the peers that can support the veterans in the jails is sort of what's been our focus the last 2 months.
Hi, I'm Dr. Michelle Durham. I'm an adult child psychiatrist by training and still practice clinically. I also do forensic work and worked a lot with the Federal Public Defender's Office in Dallas in particular, doing a lot of mitigation cases for the state. I'm Houston-based. I'm the Deputy Chief Medical Officer for Meadows. Meadows Mental Health Policy Institute is not clinical in any way. And so I do have that separate sort of forensic lens and also child psychiatry lens in my clinical practice. But with Meadows, we are really an independent and nonpartisan organization that really works at that intersection of policy and programs. And so to Dr. Lepore's point, that's a good example of the work we do at Meadows, is that we partner with a lot of different, whether nonprofit, whether they're state organizations in Texas, but also nationally as well, to really think about how programs can have good data and outcomes. How can we help with that data and outcome to influence policy ultimately at the state and federal level? And so we're really using that on the ground experience to help push policy. The other thing, there's two examples of that. One is the mapping that we're at the point now. He talked about TJJD's counterpart for Meadows, it's Layla Fry that's been working closely for that mapping initiative, and also really now at the point where after a lot of listening sessions in communities across the state of now thinking about how do they implement everything that they heard. The other thing is really thinking about across the care continuum, and so not when people are already in the justice system in some way, but early on. So a lot of prevention work and a lot of thinking about emergency response work too and crisis work. And so we do have a partnership. It's called the Behavioral Health Emergency Response Initiative with lots of counties in Texas and actually a couple of other states. It's a 3-year statewide initiative to really look at our emergency response and when people are in crisis. How do the police, we're involving police, but also community partnerships and organizations in these various communities to really think about how we do that better. Last but not least, this is my first meeting as well, and it's really nice to be here and represent Meadows, but also on the other side to think about when I'm doing the forensic work, a lot of what I'm seeing too when I'm going into these systems and have a specialty too in co-occurring disorders in particular. And so thinking a lot about addiction, substance use disorders, and how they intersect with mental health.
Hi, good afternoon. I am Judge Tyra McCollum. I'm the presiding judge of County Court at Law number 2. We are one of those county courts who have jurisdiction over everything in life and in between. We have criminal, civil, juvenile, probate, mental health commitments, and eminent domain proceedings. And so at least 3.5 of those disciplines really speak to the work that we do here and through the value that JCMH provides to us specifically in Fort Bend County. And because I am utterly bored in my job, I am also the presiding judge over our Fort Bend County Veterans Court as well, which is our specialty court. So sort of a few things, and Dr. Almeida and I hail from the same wonderful county, so I will be diligent in not repeating any of the things she has said. But one of the things I really sort of want to brag about that this commission has been great for us is that through the introduction formally here of Devin Anderson, and I haven't seen her today, at Justice Forward, we now, through our Fort Bend County Veterans Court, so when I inherited that court, there were 4 veterans in there, and we were trying to revamp what that court would look like and sort of reimagine it. I am proud to say that we have now graduated out in about 3 years, 42 veterans who have successfully participated in that program and are receiving appropriate aftercare services. So we're super excited about that. But to the complement of Devin Anderson and Justice Forward, we are fully collaborated with them. So some of the financial needs that we cannot meet through our own budget, Justice Forward has stepped in. They come and they participate monthly in our Veterans Court program, and that is as a direct result of Devin and I meeting here through this commission. So please know that those relationships that we develop here really matter. So I wanted to say that. Additionally, we are excited that in the juvenile hat that I wear, we just hired a new chief psychologist, Dr. Tanya Martin. She is formerly an employee of Dr. Almeida there, and that was super important because so many of our juveniles, much of the work that we do, we have 3 specialty courts in our juvenile system, really require the comprehensive background of someone like Dr. Tanya Martin. So we're excited to have her. And then the other positive thing I would say is that we opened up this year a juvenile vocational center. And while it might not seem like on its face that has a whole lot to do with mental health, it actually does. Because what it does is provides us as another alternative for our juveniles who may not be on the same academic trajectory as some others, those who might not have the same intellectual abilities as some others. And so the vocational department that we have now created really does provide a safe avenue for those individuals to have another positive trajectory into the community to contribute as part of the workforce. So we are excited about that. And then the other thing I would say that comes as maybe here's what we're working on space, is that Fort Bend County has probably 12, Dr. Maybe you could probably correct me. I think we have 12 specialty courts. And when you grow that fast and you put those programs in place, we really are looking to find ways to be efficient and to streamline and to make sure that we are not over specialty courting, if that's a verb, and really meeting needs, that each one of those specialty courts really has a specific need that addresses a specific demographic, and we are best serving everyone in those capacities. So we are thankful for the work that we have done, proud of it, but we also recognize that we're gonna hit 1 million next year, and we still have some more areas that we are still working on to grow with. So thank you, JCMH, for that.
My name is Brandy Mueller, and I had a short commute this morning. I work in Austin here. I'm presiding judge of the 403rd Criminal District Court. I've been a judge for a little over 15 years now. Most of my work was as a misdemeanor judge, and now I'm at the felony level, all criminal. One of the things I do is preside over a specialty docket for young adults. So they are in the adult criminal justice system and are at least 17 years old, but are between the ages of 17 and 24. And this specialty docket, some of the hallmarks of it are that there's maximum judicial supervision, if you will. Defendants need to report to court on a very regular basis. We have a pretty intensive case management system with a probation officer and also a case manager. And every defendant is required to be working or in school. And a lot of them, I'm happy to report, are doing both. And we're proud of the high success rate that we have. Among our challenges is probably among many of them, but probably the top one is identifying mental health conditions within this population. We have a mental health diversion court in Travis County, and that is not the one that I preside over. This one is specifically for young adults who mostly, are having issues that involve finding employment, finishing school. Some of them have their own young children. But in the midst of all of that, at 18 and 19, there are emerging mental health issues that are, often catching the defendants off guard. They are, at a point at 19 and 20 where they're suddenly hearing voices they might report, or whispering, for example, and they have not been diagnosed. And so I think we are working toward identifying mental health conditions in this population sooner and better, and we need to work on that. And there's a little bit of, as far as over specialty, as my friend here said, we have a lot of specialty courts in Travis County, and sometimes there is this difficult decision about whether a defendant is going to go to the mental health court, or they're going to go to youth offender court, for example. And so sometimes we're in this position where we need to decide how can we support the defendant and best. Another issue is really public safety, and that has become a big issue in Austin, Texas, quite frankly. And we have a number of defendants with very serious allegations involving gun violence, and they have diagnosis or have not been diagnosed, and it's unclear within our court system that the person before me who has a serious aggravated robbery allegation or aggravated assault involving a deadly weapon, who also has indications of an early diagnosis of schizophrenia. So finding that out is very important, and that is definitely a significant challenge for us.
Hi, my name is Beth Mitchell. I'm with Disability Rights Texas, and for those who don't know, Disability Rights Texas is a agency where it was established because it was found that individuals were being abused and neglected, their civil rights were being violated, and the state oversight wasn't available, and so So Congress established what's called PNAs in every state, that were tasked with ensuring the civil rights of people with disabilities. And so my main focus is on mental health, and so the intersection of mental health and civil rights. So in relation to this committee, we just recently finished a 6-day trial related to the wait list, and determining what, and basically the decision by the judge, federal court judge, the trial was over what is the constitutional time limit that should be permissible between when a person is found incompetent to stand trial and when they should be moved over to the state hospital system. And so the case is now, the trial is finished. We've submitted all of our findings of fact, conclusions of law, and so we're waiting for the judge to make a decision. I imagine the state will appeal that decision whenever it does come out, so likelihood that I during the trial, I think there was indication that there would be around a 30-day time period. Like I said, I imagine that case will get appealed, and so it will probably still be a while until we get a final decision. So some of the other work that we've been working on is around, we've really been moving into private psychiatric hospitals because they have flourished, and we've been seeing a lot of unlawful detentions that have been occurring in the private psych hospitals. A lot of individuals who are going in voluntarily, wanting and seeking help, and then they don't get committed, but they also don't get to leave, and so they end up sitting there for long periods of time. And really concerning, because we don't want individuals to be fearful of help, right? We want them to want to continue to seek help, so I think that we really need to work on that problem with some of these private psychiatric hospitals. I know that even the AG is looking at some insurance fraud for days over when people shouldn't be in the institutions if their time periods have ended. So we're looking a lot at, so we've been looking at those issues. And then finally, we've had a couple of cases, one in particular where individuals with IDD who have been found incompetent to stand trial, unlikely to restore, and do not meet criteria for commitment to any place or facility, and there not being a mechanism, an oversight mechanism for the criminal courts to follow that individual. And so I'm really happy to see that there is, the commission has put forward that proposal currently in the legislative packet, because I think that will help courts have that judicial oversight and feel more comfortable with allowing people into the community, because we do have a long wait list. So for people who do need to be in the facility, allow more spaces for those people in the facility. So I appreciate that.
I'm Elise Ferguson, and I left the county 2 years ago, and since that time, we have opened a facility for long-term care of people with needing mental health resources and rehabilitation. So we opened our facility in February and then opening a female facility in June. And so it's able to provide some of the step downs from the hospitals or releases from jail of people who cannot just live on their own and independently at this point. And so we're excited about that. And then I continue to work on mitigation. And I know one of your questions was about insanity, and in our county, all the courts handle those. And I did have one more thing. If Christy would consider putting commissioners' emails in the list of commissioners, would be really great, because I hear people and I'm like, oh, I'd love to connect with them.
Good afternoon. My name is Roxanne Nelson. I'm the Justice of the Peace in Burnett County. And I have a few things that I want to talk about today. But first and foremost, I want to thank JCMH, because Burnett County was the recipient of a grant to do our SIM workshop, which I think was a great success. We have many loving, caring hearts in Burnett that really want to take care of the vulnerable in our county, but we just can't always work out of the silos that we're in. The workshop will help bring us together so that we're not so siloed. I have confidence in that. We identified 4 priorities. One was to establish a leadership team, a behavioral health leadership team. And about 20 people signed up immediately and wanted to be part of it, but every day I'm getting more emails, and I'm now up to about 35 people who want to be part of that leadership team, and we've already had, this sim was at the end of April, and we've already had our first leadership team meeting. Our second priority was for diversion. Of course, for rural counties, diversion is a pie in the sky kind of issue. Even if we could get grant funding to build the infrastructure, we don't have anyone to work a diversion center. So we're going to try to put together some alternatives to a diversion center. And then the next one was housing. Everyone is experiencing a large homeless or unhoused population, and it's really growing in rural Texas with very little place to put these people who are unhoused. So we're going to really work on trying to find grants to build some housing in our area. And the fourth one was a mental health court. Again, for just a single rural county, that might be very difficult, but I was encouraged by Judge Hand when he talked about his regional program. Burnett County is part of a 4-county district, and we have a regional public defender's office. The 4 counties are served by the same probation department. I think that we are ready to have a regional mental health court program. So we will need all the help we can get and suggestions we can get to help propel that. I'm also going to need technical assistance because now I'm the keeper of everyone's email that wants to be part of all this. And they all want to be included in all of the communication. So I'm going to need technical assistance on figuring that out, or I might have to quit my day job in order to get that done. Secondly, for the subcommittee, we've had some great subcommittee conversations and wonderful people in those conversations. I have to thank Judge Kazin for providing all of his wealth of knowledge about the chemical dependency warrants, which evidently were done back in the 70s and 80s until we didn't have any place to actually send someone on those warrants. And so I've talked to several people about it, and they say, just like we have PPV funds, there are some funds out there for treatment facilities. And so let's explore that a little. Let's try to get some of these people off the street that need help before they get into our justice system. And then our next conversations are going to be about intensive outpatient treatment and medication-assisted treatment. If you want to join us, we'd love to have you. And our next meeting is done by Zoom on June the 9th at noon. And lastly, excuse me, I also serve on the Texas Council of Community Centers Board, and our conference is coming up June 10th through 12th in San Antonio. Registration is open now. There are some great programs and guest speakers along with some breakout sessions that I think all of you would love to be a part of. So go to the Texas Council website and register today. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. My name is Stacy Matthews. I am the district judge of the 277th District Court in Williamson County, so just now up the street, I guess, 35. Also want to thank everybody here in this room for all the work you do, except you, Dr. Lepore, who stole Matt Smith from us. I know you didn't do it personally. Everyone else in the room. No.
Did y'all present on the same day? Because he presented and you presented. No.
Probably, yeah.
I wondered if that was the connection.
Well, Dr. Lepore came and did a conference for us. We put together a mental health conference for our juvenile attorneys and our CPS attorneys that Matt organized, of course, and you were one of our wonderful speakers. So I love Dr. Lepore. He's great. Just had to give him a hard time. So, I've just been listening to everybody, and people, what is amazing about this group is what everybody's individually doing, but you're all sharing your knowledge somewhere. And, Judge John, he was talking about all the different places he's spoken, and, people talking about, I've shared the website, I've shared this, I've shared that, and everyone is so connected. And I
I think we sometimes lose sight of that in the community. We get back into our own worlds and we feel isolated and siloed, as Judge Nelson was saying. But this group really does, as I think just Judge McClure said, the power of this group is amazing. As a group, the things we're doing across Texas, and I just appreciate everybody that's doing it. I don't have a lot of exciting news from Wilco other than I have done a transformative justice docket. It's a young adult docket. Judge Mueller and I sometimes have had kiddos that we've shared, and this was a randomized control trial. It's the first that's ever been done in criminal justice ever I think even internationally. And we got our results back recently. A report was done, and they were really good. It's a total diversion program at 17 to 24-year-old offenders. And so I'm not going to go into a whole lot about it other than it's been really great. Came out, I know, heard we presented at TAPS about it. It was really great, but it's all a diversion program. And I will tell you that probably 97% of every participant in there has either some mental health, some serious mental health, or certainly some substance use issues. And so the idea of being able to divert that level, they get a dismissal and an expunction immediately. There's just a lot of really great benefits, and it's just shifting the way we've been thinking. We don't call it a specialty court because it's individualized for every single person. So it's kind of a unique way of doing this. And we've gotten some research now, which we're hoping to be able to share. So that's something that's been great. But I want to, again, piggyback off of Judge Mueller. We're seeing the same thing. We have a mental health docket in Williamson County, and we're looking at, we see some people that come in, are they better for the transformative justice docket? Are they better for mental health? And so we're also working on figuring that out, because one thing I learned as a juvenile judge is there's a secret sauce in figuring out programming, right? You can over-program, you can under-program. I think specialty courts are the same. We have about 5 or 6 in our county, which is probably the right number. I think things get diluted when we do too much. If we don't do enough, we miss people. So how do you find that balance? And so one of the things we're working on now is the judge that oversees the mental health docket and I work really closely together. And so we're trying to incorporate and do some things together. So I love that you're also looking at those same things, Judge Miller. We've got to get together. I think the only other, the Texas Judicial Center is putting on their their court professionals conference that they do every year for court administrators, court coordinators, and somehow I got suckered into being on their planning committee. And so mental health is one of the things they would have all asked for. How do we help our judges more with mental health, no matter what area of law they do? Because I think in criminal, we get used to it, but in civil and family and, what are the resources? What are some of the things? So I got Dr. Shannon is going to come and present for us. So I thank you again for sharing your knowledge. I wouldn't have even known Dr. Shannon had I not been part of this, this commission. And what's great about that is that our court professionals are wanting this information. And so I'm presenting on with Judge Willis on juvenile, and I plan to share our bench book and share the website and share some of that information, because as we all know, any of us that are judges or have jobs where we have an assistant, they're the ones that really know it all. And if we can get that information to them at a different level to get to some of their judges, I'm hopeful that we see this work spread out even more. So that's it for me.
All right. My name is Nelda Cassiati. I'm an associate judge for probate court 2. My update is kind of good news, bad news. The bad news was that last year our AOT program, that was a long-standing program, lost its funding. And so, but as Judge Matthews was saying, through the power of the connections and the people in this room, I reached out promptly to Christy, who got me in touch with Daniela, who got our local mental health authority in touch with people over at HHSC, and they were able to get a grant. And so I'm glad, very happy to say that we will be restarting our program in September. We're supposed to get funding starting in September. So the good news, or the silver lining about all of that is that we get to rebuild and look where we can improve, because our program had been running for a long time. And so it's a good opportunity to figure out where we can make improvements. And one of the things that we are looking at, because it just can't cut ties with the criminal mental health system, is looking for ways to see if we can use the AOT program or utilize that program as a diversion from the criminal justice system. Because under 1622, it allows a criminal judge to release somebody as long as they're not charged with a offense involving serious bodily injury, and then transfer them over for court-ordered outpatient mental health services. So I'm going to be working with the DA's office, and we have the new chief of the mental health unit for the Tarrant County DA's office here with me today to start implementing and talking about those procedures. So that's the good thing that I hope to come out of that. As far as the NGRI goes, I have experience with that is in that when I was the mental health magistrate for the criminal courts, I did preside over those commitment hearings once somebody was found not guilty by reason of insanity. And then again, as the chief of the mental health unit, I helped and participated in some of our bench trials, and also, in dealing with the commitments after they were found NGRI. So that's kind of my experience there. And other than that, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Cassiano.
All right, well, we are about to adjourn. Please do not forget to scan the QR code for the survey. Oh, what's that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Professor Shannon.
I didn't want to turn down one more opportunity to talk. So just reflecting on this, I won't be long. You heard from me on the legislative report. A point that I would have liked to have made then, so I'll make it now, is we can do a lot to better improve the law, but if there aren't the services there to provide the folks with the needed care, some of the things we do in changing the law are going to have great impact. I know we as JCMH collectively, that's not part of our charge to lobby for more money, but we certainly all have good friends in your communities who are in the legislature, and just letting them know that having further services available both at the community level and statewide are critical in making all of this work better for the courts and for the people that get served. Last thing Christy didn't talk about, but a lot of time was spent trying to look at this emergency detention roundtable. And if you've not read that report, I encourage you to take a look at it. We purposely did not try and push any legislation on that this time because there are a lot more issues, a lot more complex. It's not going to be fixed with a single statute. And so there's some good recommendations in that report. Okay, last one. We'll go around again.
Thank you, Professor Shannon. All right, so the QR code's on the screen behind you or in front of you. Say a prayer for the JCMH staff as they work really hard this summer to get our summit together. Remember, the summit is November 4th at the Embassy Suites in San Marcos. We look forward to seeing you there. And with that, we are adjourned.
Is it possible for me to make a quick announcement from the Collaborative Council or no? Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to remind everyone that we do have Rider 56, which is, and I know we've talked a lot about AOT, but Rider 56 is acknowledging that in between hospital level care and community placement. And I hope to work with the Supreme Court because we do have so many people, any AOT program should point to there is a higher needs population. Any of our highest levels of care point to someone needed what we once had in a state hospital system, which was that safety net, which we don't have anymore. So I hope to work with all of you before next session so that we get this through, because we can't solve homelessness and what's happening in the jails without acknowledging that highest needs population.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, that one is the right side.
See you Tuesday. Well, thank you very much.
That's stress,
Yeah, we're looking for that guy.